even then the pain, the fear tells us something. It's our compass. Most of the time we think, oh, I feel pain, I feel sadness. It's not good. But in opposite, it brings us more closer to our inner calling.
Welcome to Out of Our Comfort Zone. Hosted by a high-performance athlete and Guinness World Record holder, this is a podcast where we share actionable strategies, inspiring stories, and expert insights to turn adversity into high potential for ambitious leaders, CEOs, HROs, and athletes seeking to excel in high-pressure environments. Here's your host, Deniz Kayadelen.
Welcome to the Out of Comfort Zone podcast. And today we have a favorite topic which we will discuss, the topic of fear. And most of the time we try to overcome fear, but what happens if you use your fear as your compass? And here we have the famous Fear Alchemist. So he is a podcast owner, book writer, coach, and really embeds this topic of fear. And he calls him Fear Alchemist, Ben Harris. So it's so amazing that you are here today in this podcast. We wanted to speak for months and months, but now it's the great time to speak about this topic of fear and many, many more. So welcome.
Yay, Denise. Thank you so much for having me. I know this has been in the works. So let's dive in. Let's go. We're just two peas in a pod. So let's do this thing.
Exactly. And maybe the first question is, what does it really mean, fear, to you? And why did you choose the term of Fear Alchemist? What is that really?
Yeah, so I'm sure people listen to you. Hopefully, they know the importance of obviously getting out of their comfort zone, and what keeps them in their comfort zone is fear. But like on just a very biological level, right? Fear is the thing that is trying to protect you. It's the thing that tells you don't do the thing because you might get hurt. It's really that simple. And ironically, we were just downstairs and my son was watching part of the movie Frozen. And that movie, it literally is all about love and fear. It's all about what happens, when you act out of fear or respond out of fear. But that's typically what most people do, is because if your heart gets hurt, then you close up out of fear. You don't want to get hurt again. And it makes sense, right? It's the same thing of like when you touch a hot stove as a kid, and therefore you're not going to touch it again. And so that's just your fear. It tells you don't do that thing. So obviously we're going to go deep into like overcoming fear and like alchemizing it and transforming it, or whatever you want to say. But I think the most important thing to bring up is like fear is completely normal. And a lot of people, like at least the people that I work with, is they've spent their whole life running from their fear, or they think it's evil, right? Or they think it's wrong, or they think it's shameful, or they're weak for feeling it. And so it really just is as simple as like making friends with your fear. And that can be in little ways, that can obviously be in big ways. You can be jumping, in the cold water. You could be asking for a promotion, or you could just try expressing your feelings, right? There's so many different variations of what that looks like for everybody. And then why I chose it, like that title, it basically really like chose me. But like a quick background on my story is, so when I was 19, I was in a hip hop group and I read a book and it said, the secret to success is fearlessness. And so something just clicked in my mind. I'm like, and I wasn't a regular 19-year-old, but like I was just like, because of music, I wanted to get better at music. And so I started doing everything that I was afraid of. And so I started just to train that muscle. And then, fast forward 8-9 years later, by training that muscle, I realized, oh, this is something that not everybody has. And so I just tried coaching people and it worked. And so it was just like, okay, like I don't have some fancy degree or anything, right? But it was just, that was part of my fear, right, of overcoming the imposter syndrome of who am I to do this, but leaning into that, like brought me into this world.
Yeah, so you mentioned so many great things, right? The imposter syndrome, that everyone always thinks, I'm not ready enough, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I can't do that, I have a mask. If I show the truth to people, they will not value me, accept me anymore. And I hold a speech about that, and more than 70% of leaders currently in the corporate life, they have imposter syndrome. And the more you are perfectionistic, the more you feel not 100% enough, because it's never good enough when you seek the perfect version of yourself. You need the perfect education, perfect experience and everything. And what you now embody is, yes, you were maybe not perfect, you didn't have maybe the education and everything, but you did it from your heart and you felt it's working by yourself. So like you are acting as a role model, and now you share it with other people and help other people. Yeah.
Exactly. Well said.
And I don't know if you know that, but one of my biggest fears was cold water because I got
I do.
hypothermia 15 years ago. I was almost dying because of cold water in a swimming race. And years, I had this dream of crossing the English Channel, but I didn't do that because of my fear. I always was in the hot waters in Mexico and pools and in Turkey, here and there, German championships, Turkish championships. European, but I never went to cold water because of the fear. And after years, I decided, okay, now it's time to overcome it because at least I can maybe try a relay team swimming. And the fear showed me where I need to grow. When I went to the water, my brain said, you will die, go out.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't push my body hard. I need to learn how to manage my emotions, how to manage my brain. So literally working with the fear, dancing with the fear showed me a different growth zone because I learned how to meditate, how to do breath work, how to control better my mind, my body, my soul, my emotions. So literally, if I wouldn't had this fear, maybe I wouldn't grow this much. And now I'm a 6-time world champion in ice swimming. So that means I could transform my biggest fear into my biggest strength. And I believe everyone can do that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, and I think it's important to note for you is that you didn't wake up one day and just say, I'm going to go swim the English Channel right now, right? Is like you made the decision, like it happened incrementally. And so I think that's the misunderstanding that people have. And like, you're such a perfect example. And I really do love your story because it's like, yeah, you almost died. So it's like rightfully so, right? Like one of my favorite sayings, what is it? It's like past hurt creates future fear or something like that, right? So it's just like
Mm,
wherever we experience that in the past, like your brain is smart. It's like literally just protecting you. So it's just like, yeah, don't get in there. You're going to die. And
exactly.
then by you just embracing that slowly is the magic. And it's not even magic. It's just like, it's really, it's like, it's just binary, right? Like to me, it's logical. It's not even some magic trick. It's just, it's very, very simple. But one of my favorite quotes that I love is the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. That's just the same thing, right? It's like, where am I afraid to go? Oh, that's probably the thing that is what I want because it's closer to your heart, right? So it's like the closer it is to your heart, the more you care about it, and the most probably you fear it too.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and you're about to find out, right? Being a mother, it's like the thing that literally it's different from a mom and dad, right? But like it is you, like it's a part of you, which is different, right? But it's like you feel the most love ever and the most fear ever because it's just like I can't imagine if something happens to you. And so it's like once you learn that polarity, yeah, you start to not view it as just like, oh, this is bad or this is wrong, but it's like, oh, maybe it's something to follow, like you said in the beginning, right? Of like maybe it's a compass of just like maybe I should just be curious about those things. You don't have to be a 6-time champion like you, right? But it's like you can have your own version of that. I'm
Mm.
just like, what is the thing? Like, what is the thing that you're scared to do? Like, that's probably your truth. That's your calling. That's your nudge. That's the divine spirit, God, whatever working through you to like follow that thing.
I love that you say, yeah, that's your calling, right? Because also that's my thesis. I think we don't have fear in the areas which we don't care, right? So you
Yep.
have, for example, fear to be lonely when you get old because for you it's important to have a family. Maybe you have fear to be not successful in your new job because for you it's important to be successful to have a good status. Or you have fear to lose your money because for you money is important to have security. And for example, I don't have fear to go to the moon because it's not my goal to break a record in the moon, but maybe in 15, 20, 30 years, I don't know if Elon
Yeah.
Musk calls me, maybe not, maybe how, but so I don't have fear in this regards because it's not my new life goal, mission. It's not in my radar. So I have more fear in those areas which I take care or I am afraid to lose it because I value it, that I have it, right? So what you say, it's near close to your heart. In those areas you have fear. So basically fear is showing you what is important to you and what you would like to achieve maybe, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's what you love.
Wow. Fear is what you love.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you open this please again?
You mean you want me to keep going on that? Let's try to use an example. So it's so one of my stories, right? Of just like, so back when I was 19, one of the thing that I wanted to do the most was be on stage and like perform music, right? And like perform for thousands of people. But I was absolutely terrified. I can't even explain it, right? It was just like this deep euphoric calling. It was just like almost unreachable or untouchable. And it was so much passion for it. luckily for me, the passion overrode the fear of it, but it's just like two sides of the same coin. So that's how I like to look at it is love and fear, they're the same thing, they're just a difference in degree. So what I mean by that is there's a hermetic principle that says opposites are identical in nature, but a difference in degree. So that just means it's literally the same thing. If you want to get spiritual into it, right? Of like, I think it all ties together. The science, biology, psychology, spirituality, for me, it all ties into the same thing. But like, to me, the only thing that exists in this life is love. And then it gets twisted. It's like, I mean, you know better than anyone. Like cold, like if you feel cold in hot water,
Mm.
it's just a different temperature, but it's still water. So that's how I view like the essence of life. So love is the water, but it's just how it feels. And so it's like most people don't realize that of like, oh, it's literally the same matter. It's the difference in degree of how you relate to it and what it means to you. And so it's like, and you know better than anyone, right? Going back to a fear alchemist, you're obviously one yourself of like, you went into the fear or the quote unquote fear and you turned it into something that like that you absolutely love and that you feel called to. And I can't imagine like you'd probably go crazy if you couldn't swim for a year, let alone maybe a month. You know what I mean? So it's like it's that part of you because it's really close to you. It's your heart. And like that it really is like a whether you want to call it spiritual or just something you can't describe, like that's something that you're being called to do.
Yeah, exactly. So, to all listeners, if you have some fears, then it's your calling and it's part of your love. But most of the time, when I also coach people, some people say, I don't know what is my fear or I don't know what is my calling, right? So, what do you think? What is the most effective way to get there? Because in my speeches, I also ask, what would you do if you wouldn't have any fear in your life?
Yeah.
Some people can't answer what is my next dream, what is my next purpose, mission, vision. And then I try to ask this question and try to trigger in them their dreams, because sometimes fear is blocking you to have
Yeah.
those dreams. And I say, okay, so just imagine a life if you wouldn't have any fear, what would you do? And then some thoughts popping up. But some people still have difficulties to articulate their vision or dream, and also their fears, because they don't want to confront with their own fears.
Yeah.
So
So
what would be the best hint for everyone here to quickly or find a channel to reflect their own fears?
yeah, so I love similar in the fact of like asking questions. So to me, questions are going to be the best answers.
Hmm.
So the question I ask myself before I ask my job is, what would I do if it was impossible to fail? So maybe, saying like no fear might not connect with you, but if you ask like if it was impossible to fail, like or if no one was watching, or if I knew that I'd be successful, what would I do? So
Hmm.
maybe that's maybe a different phrase to it, but also just to like affirm and acknowledge what you're saying of like I've worked with so many people that yeah, they don't know, but as soon as they walk into that fear, they find out very quickly. You just start walking into it, just like whether it's in meditation or journaling or something physical, right? Cold water or getting up on stage or doing like just something like you will, I think, pretty quickly find out because what's happening is, yeah, you're just blocked off from your intuition. You're blocked off from your inner knowing and your own desire, probably just because you've lived a whole life based on what other people want. And so you're disconnected from like, what do I actually want?
Hmm.
And so you got to stop doing that first. Like, doesn't mean it has to be a snap of the fingers. Some people obviously do that, right? They sell everything and move to Bali and then they find themselves. You don't have to do that, but like you can slowly do it or drastically do it, whatever your truth is. But just, yeah, like start removing yourself from, or maybe you can even just start like reverse it of what in my life have I done only because that's like what people told me to do. And so maybe you can start there and just start like reflecting or journaling and seeing like, well, like, and you can ask yourself like what percentage of your life is truly like authentically yours.
Yeah. When I was last year in Nepal, right? For 18 days, we slept in the tents. We hiked and hiked to the highest altitude, to 6,400, right? And me as a half German, half Turkish, more the German side was active. Like I want to control everything. Like when we are going where, what we will do, right? Do we have the oxygen with us? Is everything there? And the last matters when we were at 5,800. The last 2 days, I shared my tent with the female doctor and my oxygen level was 74%. I had really fear of dying, right? I said, okay, so now it's a point of no return. I can't go back. All the Sherpas, all the team is up. Even if we call a helicopter, the helicopter can't go higher than 5,000 meters. So it was a point of no return. And then I really felt like, okay, maybe I will die. Maybe I will survive, whatever. What I achieved so far in my life and what I would love to still achieve, what is in my checklist pending. And this gave me a completely different perspective. And yes, I survived. And even we recognized that the filter was missing. So there was no oxygen filter. And I felt, okay, now I lost all the control of my life, right? I can't control people's acting. I can't control the weather. I can't control my oxygen level. I can't control anything. I'm just there, and I just need to let go of all my fears and anxieties because I need the last remaining energy for survival. And when I came back, I literally said, okay, now I will do my own job. I will be 100% my own boss. I loved my job. Yeah, don't misunderstand me. I loved the corporate life, the corporate world. I was successful. But when I go back, I said, yes, life is short, and now I will do what my calling is, basically. And maybe if I wouldn't have this extreme situation, I wouldn't have maybe this breakthrough moment, right? But I love what you say to say if nobody is watching, or if you would secure that you are successful, or the extreme question, what I then started to ask to my coaches is, imagine you have just 12 months left in your life. What would you do? I know it's not a convenient question, it's a little bit out of comfort zone question, but yeah, literally, if you would have just 12, 15 months, what is pending in your life? What would you start it to do?
Yeah, and it's like those types of questions, like you said, it's an uncomfortable question, but that's the whole point. But
What
like,
was your biggest fear? What you transformed in your biggest strength?
oh man, I'm trying to think. Like, I think the important context for this, right, is what you've even said, right? Like, what is my biggest fear? Because I think it continues to up level or it evolves with you, right? It's not just like a snap of the fingers and it's gone forever. I think there's versions of that, right? In the sense of like, I can look back at like starting my business and it's like it doesn't like scare me as much, right? Because I have that capacity and I have that muscle. And so it's not a snap of the fingers that it went away, but now I have just like anything, right? Of like once you train it is like you have that tolerance now. But for me, I'm actually snapping back to when I was recording my Fear Alchemy course and this big pressure, this big energy like came up and moved through me. And I didn't expect this to happen, but I just started like crying and kind of like breaking down a bit because I didn't realize there was so much pressure on me that I put on myself. And the fear was like, if this doesn't do well, right? Or if this doesn't help people, or if people don't transform through this course, then it feels like I've let people down. And then it feels like that is like abandonment, right? Then I'm not lovable anymore.
Mm.
So it's like you can go really pretty deep on this, and I've done a lot of work on this in the past year, but I didn't realize how much I was doing this work in order to feel like I mattered, in order to feel like, I'm important and that like I deserve to be on this planet. And so it's a sneaky thing that not a lot of people realize of like whether you're an entrepreneur or an author or a speaker or any type of that, usually that comes from a place to prove your worth. Like it just does, it's like it's a more healthy way, right? It's not as destructive, but it's like there's still part of you that wants to be like, see, like, look how amazing I am.
Mm.
Like, look what I did, right? Like, am I valuable now? And so doing a lot of that work recently, like, has been a big ego death. And I think it goes back to even like when you were, in Nepal, like you come face to face with that thing. And like, of course, you can still choose to freak out. You could have an anxiety attack, but you chose to surrender. And so it's kind of that same thing for me is like choosing to surrender of just like getting really, really close to my why, getting closer and closer to my heart of why do I want to do this? And is this really like even asking those hard questions for me, right? Like, even though I've been doing this for years of like, why am I building this business? Like, would I still do this? Am I still doing this for approval, right? Am I still doing this to be like praised? And like the truth was like, yeah. And coming to terms with that has been really helpful for me and acknowledging that like, yes, that there's a part of me that like wants to be validated. So holding that paradox of like wanting to be validated, but also knowing my inner worth and my inherent value, and like harmonizing those has been really helpful for me of like how I show up now.
And it's really hard to harmonize it, right? In the world of social media, likes,
Yeah.
comments. Even now, sometimes when I post something on LinkedIn, still I also followed your Fear Alchemist course. And yeah, the question is, are you doing it for others, for validation, or are you doing it for your mission? And yes, the paradox is yes, both.
Yeah.
And I know it's not good to think about what other people think, but every few hours, sometimes I go back to my LinkedIn and say, okay, how many people watched, how many people liked, how many people comment? And if I have many likes, I feel better. If I have less likes, I feel less worthy, or I feel,
Yeah.
oh, was my post not qualitative good enough? And many people are in this circle, right? Also
Yes.
in your job, when you do a meeting, when you don't get the positive feedback, you feel less worthy, you feel less than others, you start to feel self-struggle, and you start to question yourself and say, oh, was it good enough? What I could do better, why people didn't appreciate that, why I don't have good feedback, why I don't have too many likes. So what do you think? What is this syndrome, and how did you overcome this then?
The best way I've learned to overcome it is like really feel it and really welcome it. And the difference, I think you can probably relate to this, right? Of like, there's usually a hype, right? Like, I'm guessing when you first got in the cold water, it was really exciting.
Yeah.
It's still scary, obviously, but like, but then eventually that dies down, right? And then it kind of like you're left with something that's you're faced with like a deeper why. And that's really like what's happened for me, right? Of just like me doing it because I want to and because I choose to. And not because I have to. And that's also a paradox too, though, right? Because it's like you might feel like some force is moving you, right? And so it's like, well, like I just like have to. I'm almost being like nudged into this path. But also I think it's important, right, to just to acknowledge like I'm choosing this versus like I have to do this. And
Yeah.
that's what I have some clients do. I literally have them write a list of like I have to, and then they just fill it out. And then you'll as soon as you make that list, you have like basically a list of reasons why you have imprisoned yourself. And it doesn't mean that you don't do those things anymore, but you just change your relationship with it. So instead of like, oh, I have to post on social media, it's like, do I actually want to? Or is it my truth to? And maybe I don't feel like it, but I know that I'm choosing to do this because I want the result that it brings. So it's so subtle, but it is a profound shift.
It's about, is it your decision? Is it in your control, in your initiative, or do you feel you are forced to do it to get something, right?
Yes.
And yeah, I think I love this thinking process, because everything what you do, it's your choice, right? And then you are less dependent on external validation, because you say, yeah, it's my authentic self, it's me, and I'm worthy enough to do this, to do that, to post that. And if just 10 people appreciates, it's okay. But if hundreds, it's also fine. So you are more grounded within yourself.
Exactly. And it's most people chase relevance, right? They chase likes or approval or validation. But the more resonant you are, which is truth, right? The more authentic I am in my resonance, then ironically, more people will resonate with that. And then in turn, you'll be more relevant. People try and find their, right? They try and be relevant. And then it's like, oh, then I'll be good, then I'll be enough, then I'll feel as like no, because it's like technically you're already doing what you didn't want to have happen. It's like, so your fear of rejection is causing you to people please, right, or morph yourself into something that really isn't you because you want to be accepted. But even if you do get accepted, it's still not the real version of you. So that's the tricky thing, right? Is like they're accepting a false version of you, so you still feel rejected because you rejected yourself in the beginning.
That's so true. And that's, I think, the origin of the imposter syndrome, right? That 70% of leaders, high performers, top performers on the top, they have the this kind of imposter syndrome, because they don't feel themselves like themselves. They don't feel themselves in the 100% authentic self. They maybe don't show up with their vulnerabilities, with their own insecurities or fears or whatever. They try to be perfect, play a role, play the game, the rules of the game, and the corporate life and the social media rule game and whatever. And then they get maybe success and the medals and everything, but they feel, oh, I got this appreciation, I get this validation because I do this and this. But oh, wow, if people would see me in the background, my insecurities or what I actually do, but I didn't want to do, then maybe I wouldn't be so well valued from others, right?
For sure, right? And so they're doing it, how I would say is it like they're doing that to fill a hole
Mm.
instead of from feeling whole. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like that validation or that ladder climbing or that praise. You're hoping that it's like it's gonna click something, right? It's gonna fill that void. And it could be anything, right? It could be money, it could be likes on Instagram, it could be whatever.
Yeah.
That's like, you know, from coaching people, I know from coaching people is like the most quote unquote successful people have all this stuff. And it's like because like we're just human, right? So it doesn't matter like who you are, but yeah, back to your point of like I feel like why that happens is because yeah, most people don't know what they want and they're doing it because they feel like they have to or they should or because someone told them, and then once they get there it doesn't feel fulfilling because it's not actually really deeply true to them.
Yeah.
And so that's where a lot of, you know, identity crisis can happen for a good reason, but that's also in your benefit because you'll get deeper to your truth of like, whoa, like I got everything I thought I quote unquote wanted, but it's actually not what I wanted. You start to inquire, right? And so whether it's an awakening or, you know, whatever you want to call it, of like you start to ask yourself those uncomfortable questions we've been talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And basically, even then, the pain, the fear tells us something. It's our compass again. Most of the time, we think, "Oh, I feel pain, I feel sadness. It's not good." But in opposite, it brings us more closer to our inner calling, right? And I have also a spiritual coach, and now I also coach others spiritually after the formation I did with her. And after my father died, I felt lost. I felt so sad. He died in the pandemic crisis. Yeah. And every Christmas, I'm living in Switzerland, and every Christmas, I visited my mom who lives in Istanbul, Turkey, because I felt I have to visit her because she is lonely and I need to fill her hole. But in this kind of sadness, after my father died, I called my spiritual coach and I said, I don't know if I want to really go to Christmas time to Istanbul to face all the sadness also of my mom, feel all the energy. I don't know. I'm not sure. And my friends will go to South Africa. Maybe I should go to South Africa, Cape Town. And she asked a really great question. She said, Denise, are you deciding from your fear zone or from your joy zone?
Yeah.
So what would your fear zone would decide? What would your joy zone would decide? And I said, yes, my fear zone would decide for Istanbul, being a good girl, for my mom, serving my mom, filling her hole, to feel a better girl, to be a responsible child. And if I wouldn't do that, I had fear of not being accepted from her, or she will get angry, she will get sad, and I'm responsible. I'm the reason of her sadness, of her loneliness in the Christmas time. So I can't do this, you know? So I really struggled with myself. But this question was so simple and opened up so many answers within me. And suddenly I really recognized going to Christmas there would be from the fear zone, the decision. Going to South Africa, to Cape Town, where it's the summertime, where I have the sea, where I have maybe some friends who are not too close to me, but help me maybe to deal with my sadness better because they are not so close. They don't are in this pain like I am. And suddenly I felt, yes, the joy zone feels more South Africa. And this is just a small, simple example, right? Where you go for Christmas, but you can use this simple question to all life areas when you make decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. So this is the irony, right? This is the paradox of this entire conversation of like how we started, right? Is fear is a compass, but then we're telling people to follow joy. So it's like why that happens is because you've actually been following fear. So you have it twisted, right? As it's like most people are living their life in fear
Yeah.
and not actually for things that they enjoy or and so it's like you have to flip that, right? So it's like actually joy scares you. So that's why like the generic advice, right, is like freedom is on the other side of fear. So it's like it can be confusing, right? But it's like following your joy actually brought up fear, right? Because of all those reasons you said, right? Of like if I go here,
Yeah.
then I'm not this, right? So ironically, it's both. It's like it brings me so much joy and I'm afraid, but that's the perfect mix versus I don't want to go here and it feels like obviously you still love your mom and everything, right? But it's like you can already feel like the heaviness of that
Yeah.
versus the expansion of the other way. So I just wanted to add that context so people know where it's just like you can honestly just start to feel that. And I love that question because people can just start like, I mean, you can ask yourself that every day, every moment,
Every
you
moment.
take for a moment.
Exactly. And you can use it for simple things, but also for important things, right? When you
Yep.
make a career change, when you even start a relationship or stop a relationship. How many people are just staying in toxic relationships, whether it's in business, in private, in friendships, because they have fear to stay alone, they have fear to not finding another job. And yeah, that's a decision in the fear zone, right? When you decide even the toxic energy where you are in, to say, okay, I still stay there, I'm still there, I need to hold on because otherwise I'm afraid of the consequences. And
Correct.
it's stepping into the unknown. And many people are so afraid to stepping into the unknown. I know you are also coaching entrepreneurs, right? And I was also afraid to stepping into the unknown 1 year ago, when I decided to say, okay, I will do now completely my own business. And Dr. Joe Dispenza always also says, in the unknown, there are unlimited possibilities,
Yes.
right? But this is so hard, this step, to make this step.
Yeah, I mean, and it's okay that it's hard, right? It's like, that's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a challenge. And it's like, to me, and I know not everyone thinks like me, but it's like, to me, it's such a logical decision. And one of the funny things that I find, right, is like a lot of the people who say don't make emotional decisions are usually the ones who are making the most emotional decisions. Every single decisions humans make are emotional. Like the decisions we make are emotional, and then we justify them with logic every time, right? Because it's like, so if you're doing the safe thing, right, is like, well, I want to feel safe. I want to feel comfortable. So it's like, that's still an emotional decision because that produces a feeling inside of you, right? So I think that's important, is that like caveat of like, we're all making emotional decisions every single moment. And so it just goes back to, for me, of like, yeah, like when I quit my job 6 years ago, which is crazy, it just became, it was simple. I was like, yeah, if I stay here, then I don't get what I want. And yes, the unknown, I could fail, but if I stay, I have 0% chance of success. And if I leave, I have greater than 0%. You know, so it's like, to me, that's where it becomes obvious of like, okay, like this stupid decision is actually to stay. And like the smart decision is actually to leave. And so for me, like when I felt into that, like you can tell, like even in that, right, I'm like justifying my emotions logically, but we all do it to feel better about it, right? Because it's like my heart was like, go for it, go for it, go for it. And then I had to justify it logically. And that's what we all do anyway. So it's because my ego and my survival brain wants to feel safe. And so that justification, I'm making it feel safe of like, this is the right move.
And that's what I also say in my book, Out of Comfort Zone. So the reason why we are staying in the comfort zone is because we want to avoid fear. We want to avoid discomfort and the unknown. But when we then face the unknown and the fear, then we are literally in the growth zone, and we don't have anything to lose because we are just growing, right? So if you would stay in this job, or if you would stay in this toxic relationship, you know what you have. Yes, it feels still comfortable, even if it's toxic, because you know you can predict it, right? You can predict how it will be tomorrow, the day after, but you can't predict how much joy you could have in the other side of the unknown. But if you don't do the step, then I always say you are almost failed, because you are rejecting all the possibilities, opportunities in your life, right? So when last year the champion, the president of ICE World Championship, called me and said, Denise, I'm got ill. I have one slot for you. If you want, you can go to Nepal with the South African team. I was like, I'm not a mountaineer. How I can face this challenge? How I can do that, right? But then after a few hours, first I rejected the opportunity in my brain. And then I said, if I don't go, I never know if I can do this challenge. So at least I can go and fail and say, okay, I tried. At least I can see some mountains. But if I don't go, then I almost fail. The only difference is that people maybe don't see that I'm failing, but I would fail immediately within myself, right?
Yes, because like we've talked about before, of like fear creates the exact same thing that you don't want to have happen. But that's what most people don't realize, right? Is like, I have fear of failure, therefore I'm going to guarantee failure because it gives me a false illusion of control. I'm sure you've heard this quote of like, fear doesn't prevent death, it prevents life. Have you heard that one?
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's one of my favorites, right? Because what is fear there for, right? Biologically, it's to prevent death, right? It's to encourage the survival of our species.
Yeah.
But obviously, we're above that now. And
Mhm.
so, unless our house is burning down or there's a robber, we're trying, like, someone's actually trying to kill us, So, but basically, in our comfortable, modern lives,
Mm.
is like fear doesn't prevent death, it prevents life. And so, it's like, it
Wow,
literally
I
does
love this. Yeah.
yeah.
But then how you can distinguish the fear of really being in risky situations, the fear who wants to protect you, and then the fear having courage and do something extraordinary, right? Because when I went to Nepal for this world record, or when I went into this ice water, of course, there's a still risk, for survival.
Yeah.
How how is the difference? So how we can differentiate the fear between what protects you and what limits you?
I mean, so I'll answer, but I'm curious for you of like when you're doing one of your races into the ice, right? Of like you're still doing things. So it's like what are the like I guess risk factors or something that like you put in place? Like I'm curious.
So I always analyze the past consequences, the past success rate of people. For example, when I swam in the Catalina Channel, it's a shark area, and I swam completely in the darkness. And then I said, okay, did something happen to those people who swam? No. Okay, if they could do that, I can do that. So that was my starting point. And then I had all the experts with me. In case they see a shark, they would pull me out. And the rest was trusting to the universe, having faith. And for Nepal, I didn't have any benchmark because we went really literally in a mountain, which without people, nobody was there before. So it was completely stepping into the unknown, and I just had faith and courage. And that's the risky thing, maybe sometimes you have too much courage and you over analyze your capabilities. But also to minimize the risk, I spoke with experts. I went to doctors. I said, here, this is my body. Can I do it? Is it realistic? I spoke with mountaineers who climbed Mount Everest. I said, this is my background, my experience, basically zero experience. How can I do that? What are the signs of getting hypothermia? What are the signs of getting altitude sickness? And in this case, what I should do, right? So I literally tried to back up myself with the experts and trust them.
Exactly. So I mean, that answers the question, right? Because it's not that you're just doing something like most people, right, aren't going to do something death defying. Like if they do, awesome, right? But like like that is actual, like, yeah, if you're doing something like that, you can consult, right? You can learn, you can take all the courses, right? Like if we just think about like starting your own business, for example, right? Yeah, you can have money saved. You can take all the courses, you can try and build your business on the side, but just like you eventually you have to leave, right? It's like there is no, like, it's impossible to eliminate risk, but you can minimize it. And we all have different risk tolerances. Like for me, when I quit my job, I didn't do any analysis. Right? It's like, let's just go. Like I just have this feeling. But now I would because I have a family. So it's
Yeah.
just different seasons of life, right? And it's like, and like before, like I didn't consult anyone, but now, right, I'm going to consult my family, right? And so, but I still do some crazy things that people think that would probably not be quote unquote smart. It just depends on who you are and like what you want out of life. But it's like ultimately, I guess what's coming to mind for me is like, have you seen the David Blaine documentary on Hulu, Disney Plus, or like National Geographic?
Not yet, but I will do now. I'm
But do
curious.
you know David Blaine? I'm guessing. So it's called Do Not Attempt, and obviously he does right, like literal death-defying things that no one should do, right? Like eating glass. Just like what? And but it's like why I bring that up is because you can see in that show, like he has a whole team of experts, right? And it's literally months and months of training for just like one stunt. So it's not just like this dude's just going to go do this thing, right? But like he's obsessed with this thing that he wants to experience.
Yeah.
And so it's not just like he's just doing it willy-nilly, but at the same time, right, is like his history has all led up to the point. So I think it goes back to everything we've been talking about of like the most simple thing is to train the muscle.
Yeah.
Is
The
like
muscle.
that's just what it is. It's like you don't go to the gym once and then you're strong forever, right? Even
Exactly.
when you get strong, you have to stay strong.
So feel the fear and do it anyway. And despite fear, doing it anyway requires also training. Yeah, like it's a resilience training, mental training. And many people get afraid of something and then they want to get rid of this feeling. But it's like an expectation of wanting to running a marathon without any training, any muscle training, right? So you need to also train your muscle of feeling the fear and do it anyway, to be more resilient and to have more courage to go this leap, right? And feel your inner calling.
For sure. And I would say like I love the feel the fear and do it anyway. And also what I've seen, it feels like people misunderstand that quote, right? Is like what she said, right, is feel the fear, not bypass the fear. So
Not
that
ignore it.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's not ignore it, shut it down and ignore it, but like try doing it with it. And that can maybe make all the difference for you.
So you have also the Fear Alchemist program, and you also share some hints and hacks in your Telegram, WhatsApp group, and so on. What are your top 3 main messages? What you would like to give to our listeners right now?
Top three. feel like we've already given a lot. I feel like, let me tap into that for a moment. I think one is love your fear. I think that will shift some things for people because that's kind of it's a trip for your mind. It doesn't really compute for that. What else? Man, I feel like that could,
Love your fear.
yeah, I feel like that could shift a lot for people.
So
Yeah, ask
sometimes
yourself.
people can try to feel the love to their fears while
Yeah,
waiting for the second hack. Yeah.
I know. And I feel like asking yourself one of those questions that we asked today, right? Of like, we gave a bunch of them, right? Like, what would you do if it's impossible to fail? What would you do if fear didn't exist? Like, if no one was watching, what would you be doing?
Mm.
If you, who would you be, right? What would you do? How would you feel if you knew you'd be successful? And like what you said, right? Like if you had 12 months left to live, like what are you doing? So I'd put like, ask hard questions just because like that's going to give you what you want, right? Freedom's on the other side of fear.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I just want to put this in all caps of like, you are a leader.
You are a leader.
You are a leader in the sense of like, I really do believe everyone who's listening to this is a leader. Not a lot of people believe that, right? Because again, back to the imposter syndrome, but I know everyone's a leader, that you're here for a reason and like you have a gift and a purpose to carry out. And I just know in my heart that you are a leader. So it's stop pretending that you're not and embody that.
I love that because everyone is so unique. You
Yep,
are so unique. I am so unique. Everyone brings something to the table, to this universe. And there's a reason why we are here. Everyone has a different reason. So being authentic, being true to yourself is the biggest gift for us, what we can give ourselves, right?
exactly. And to everybody.
Yeah. And to everybody. Yes, because when we are authentic, when we are happy with ourselves, then we can give the best version of ourselves to our people, to the world, right? I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Boom.
Boom. Yeah, time is flying. It was really great to speak with you. I had many more questions, but I think maybe we can do even another session of that. So, is
For
there
sure.
anything you would like to add before we closing this podcast? It was really amazing to have you here.
No, thank you, Denise. I appreciate it. Yeah, and like if you guys want to come connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn, Ben Harris. There might be a lot of Ben Harrises. So I think my name is still the Fear Guy on LinkedIn, but also Break Free with Ben on Instagram. My website is feeling-free.com. Yeah, just come hang out, come say what's up. I'd love to hear what your takeaway from this conversation was.
Amazing. Yeah. So I would strongly recommend to follow Ben. I really like your authentic posts and thoughts, and it shows again and again when you are in your authentic self, when you are also showing your vulnerability, you are more stronger than ever and than other people like who's having just only a mask. And I think we all can more and more do this to break free from our fears, from our limiting beliefs. And the more we go into our authentic self, our authentic truth, the more success will come. It's the byproduct, the happiness, the success, right? The first thing is, I think, to be who we are. And it's easy said, but difficult to live. But that's our journey. Yeah, amazing.
For sure. Yeah, thank you, Denise. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, evening, and to all the listeners, what we can wish. Shall we wish a fearless life? No, it's not a fearless life, right? Or what would be the essence what you would like to wish regarding fear?
Yeah, I feel like I get that, right? Because you can say fearless, and I think sometimes that's necessary, right? In the sense of like, but really what fearlessness is just a full heart, right? Or it's full bravery, or it's courage all the way dialed up. So it's not really the absence of fear, right? It's more of the full presence of love. That's what I would say.
The full presence of love, where you can act with courage and dance with your fears and create magic.
Boom.
If
Amazing.
you'd like to learn more about how we can help transform your life and live to your fullest potential in your personal or professional life, we invite you to visit our website at outofourcomfortzone.com. By the way, if you enjoyed listening to the show, please subscribe and rate it. Thank you.